Welcome back to another reaction stream. We are looking ahead to Gameweek 14 and we've got one game left in Gameweek 13 tomorrow between Fulham and Wolves. I don't think any of us are too interested there. And what we see in terms of our rank and points is what we're probably going to end up with by the end of Gameweek 13. We've got UCL fantasy content as well for match day 5. I'll be uploading a team selection video tomorrow, the deadline stream on Tuesday, and then of course the usual Gameweek 14 content for FPL. I'm going to go straight into your questions. Drop a like if you enjoy it and also subscribe as well for future content, just to be updated whenever I upload something, and also post. I do quite a lot of posts like polls, which can also help you with your decision making. Jim King 13 says Gameweek points so far 65 for me, pretty decent week, and I think the game changer was Gordon and Lascelles, both of them combining for that Lascelles goal, and then Gordon scoring against 10-man Chelsea is what turned this from an average week into a pretty good one. And I've gone up from 1.3 million to 632,000 if not mistaken. Maybe it was 1.2 million my previous rank. Either way, it's back on track. Decent progress in the last couple of weeks, especially since my wildcard, which I deployed in Game Week 8. And I'm close to 800 points now, so things are looking better. Still not great, but it's not too shabby at the moment. No worry success, I completely understand that. If it was 12 AM, I'd be doing something else, either sleeping or watching something. Patrick says, hi Dylan, worth doing Son Watkins out for Salah. Some forward under 5 million. Wood or Archer. Got Wissa 2, so next week I'm taking a -4 hit for Wissa Bowen to Isak Palmer. I can see what you're doing there, but remember Wissa is facing Luton Town at home next, so it might be an awkward time to sell him. As for Jarrod Bowen, the thing is, if you kept him for this game week and he's got a better chance of starting in Game Week 14, I don't really see the need to sell him. And personally, if Bowen is fit, I'd much rather have him over Cole Palmer. So as much as the transfers are good, I like Isak and Palmer overall, I wouldn't do that. And I'd keep Wissa and Bowen, especially in the case of Bowen, he's a long-term hold, unless his injury is deemed to be even more serious than we thought. As for Wissa, yeah, I think keep him for Luton and then sell him afterwards. Happy Human says, I'm annoyed. I started Areola over Onana. I changed it 30 minutes before the deadline. Yeah, at least Areola got a save point. You've got to look at the positives. But yeah, I was asked about this, and you know, Onana has been pretty good in recent weeks. I think after a shaky start at Man United, he started to fix up a little bit. And today he was probably man of the match. I think he was Man United's best player, made 6 saves, and he was one of the big difference makers. Happy Human says, I got 55 points overall. I think that's pretty good in a week like this. 54 for me, says John Jack. Same thing. It's good things. Change Gordon to Declan Rice. Rice has been one of the best players in the Premier League this season, but FPL-wise, just don't go for him, especially if you're selling Gordon to him. I just don't think that makes any sense. FPL Marius says, hi Dylan, 59 points, 4 points off top 1 million. Decent stuff. What a week. 2 free transfers. Early thoughts. So yeah, you put your team. I think Alvarez is becoming a big issue. I thought he'd do well against Liverpool. I don't think he was going to start the game, but with Grealish, you know, basically falling out of the squad due to illness, you know, that kind of paved the way for Alvarez, who was very underwhelming in that game. A few attacks kind of died down when Alvarez was on the ball. The final ball, the decision-making just quite wasn't there. I think Diaby's the one to sell there. I know it's Bournemouth away, but I'd be very tempted to sell him after that half-time substitution. I think Diaby to Mbeumo is a very simple transfer for you. I don't think you need to make another transfer necessarily this week, but you could consider also Turner up to Raya if you've got the funds there, Marius. I'm looking at something similar. I'll discuss that in the team selection video. What I need to do with Mitoma, well, he could be back for Game Week 14, but ultimately I think he is a sell anyway. And Brighton got their first win in 7 Premier League games, if I'm not mistaken, but yeah, with Mitoma, I think he's a sell. If you don't have Mbeumo, very simple switch. 48 with 8 Nuri tomorrow, pretty decent. You should get into the 50+ mark for sure, and I think that's pretty decent, all things considered. 59 all in, says Adam. Kathan says Cash, Bowen, Eze, Diaby. I'm guessing, yeah, at the end you say who to sell in order. I just don't really see Bowen as a sell, to be honest. I'd definitely keep him for now until he's ruled out. So just to get the latest comments by David Moyes yesterday. So only 2 injuries there for West Ham, Antonio and Bowen. And he said, we hope Jarrod will be available, but that'll be a decision we'll make on Saturday. That's basically the last update we've gotten about him, and that was before the game. So he can still make it back for the 30th of November heading into Game Week 14. I would definitely keep him. I don't think it makes sense. I know he's orange flagged at the moment, but that was for Game Week 13, and it hasn't been updated yet for Game Week 14. So Bowen is definitely not a sell for me. He'd be a keep, to be honest. So in terms of the others, Eze is a bit unfortunate. you know, he could be out for a couple of weeks. But I think in order, it would be Eze first to sell, but of course wait for updates. Second Diaby, third Cash, and fourth Bowen. Don't sell Bowen though. N says 51 all out, small green arrow before tomorrow's game. Yeah, that's pretty good, and it should still be a green arrow because not many people have Fulham or Wolves players. And I think the biggest contributions will be what, from Hwang or defenders really from either side. Sell Cash or Gvardiol to Saliba. Difficult one. Gvardiol's more of a rotation risk. I think Cash was only subbed off because he was lucky not to be sent off, to be honest. On a yellow card, one more foul and he would have been sent off. So, yeah, Cash has been really frustrating. Poor fixtures as well after Bournemouth, but I think I'd rather sell Gvardiol, keep Cash for Bournemouth, and he could still be pretty useful in Game Week 18. But I'll be honest, Cash has been absolutely useless whilst in my FPL team. 67 points to Xavier, Crystal Palace player. Michael Elise is back. What do you think? Yeah, he looked good. That goal was incredible, of course. Yeah, I think you have to say Garnacho's goal pipped him to the best goal of the weekend, but Elise is probably second. And yeah, I think he's pretty decent, but I'm still not too sure. Even with Eze, who I nearly bought this week, I'm still not fully convinced about the Palace attack, so I'm not quite there yet at the moment. Michael says, good evening, you'll Son to Saka or roll the free transfer. Yeah, with Son, I'll be honest, I was very bullish on him against Villa. He had the chances, but his positioning, his timing of the runs wasn't quite there. And as a result, he was offside on 3 occasions, I think, maybe more. So very frustrating for Son owners and those that captained. But I think Son to Saka is a good move in Game Week 14. I always said this, keep him for Villa and then make the switch. I think those of Saka are a bit fortunate with that late assist, but Saka's delivery is exceptional. He got a similar assist actually against Chelsea for Leandro Trossard. VJC News says, I'm disappointed with Diaby. What to do with him? Sell. I think it's quite easy there. It doesn't really matter anyway if, you know, he's got Bournemouth away next. He could haul, but ultimately long term, he is a sell. Gary says, I captain Saka. Yeah, pretty good. Only a 1 point difference between him and Haaland. So either way, it's pretty good. And I think that late assist salvaged things because he also got the 2 bonus points. Unbury says bench Tsimikas last week and Gordon this week. I feel for you. I think I said in the stream yesterday, I think I said it, you can go back to it, that I had a good feeling about Gordon. And as a result, I just wasn't going to sell him because some people were saying, you know what, looking at your team, Gordon facing Man United and Chelsea, you know, you should sell him. But sometimes you need a bit of luck and also a bit of gut instinct to fall your way. 40 points, what a bad week. A lot of people had a bad week though, so look, it happens. Everyone's going to have a bad game week eventually. Take on the chin, move on. I think Game Week 14 could be very high scoring, and I'd be quite optimistic for most people and the team situations. Jankster Jr., great name, says Matoma and Alvarez out for Mbuma and Semenyo. Well, with Semenyo, he's only a 4.5 million forward who you'll bench pretty much every single game week. I do like Mbuma. I think that's a great move. I'd only do that if you've got 2 other forwards of high quality like Haaland and Watkins. But if you're now down to 1 forward, I would reconsider that because Semenyo is not someone you want to rely on in your starting 11. So just making that clear. But Matoma to Mbuma, great move. J Ward 10 says already done Diaby to Mbuma as Mbuma's rising tonight. Yeah, terrible week for me. 37 points with Son captain. Not really disappointed with captain's decision. Yeah, I think Son owners were a bit unlucky, but his timing of the runs was pretty poor today. And I think Spurs' finishing in general let them down. They played quite well. Ironically, some of the games they won prior to their recent downfall, they played worse in those games, like the one against Palace compared to the game against Villa today. But that's football. I have 0 in the bank, so I can't get Mbuma in 1 move. I understand that. And unfortunately, you can't do Turner to Raya. So, yeah, looking at your team again, I think what you could also consider, and it's quite difficult actually looking at it, but yeah, goalkeepers, you wouldn't really make a downgrade there. I think Son is probably the sacrificial lamb. So if Bowen is clear to play, he's fully available, you could still do Son to Bowen, and then that'll give you the funds more than enough to do Diaby to Mbeumo. Apart from Bowen, which other players could you consider in the midfield? I mean, someone mentioned Elise earlier. I don't think that's a bad shout. I still like Palmer long term, but as we always mentioned, penalties do inflate his returns quite significantly, and you have to bear that into account. But yeah, I think Son would have to be the downgrade, or even Alvarez looking at your team, actually. So, quite difficult because there's not many great forwards below Alvarez's price. I think Solanke's still probably the best of a relatively bad bunch at 6.5 million and below. But yeah, Son or Alvarez to downgrade there, Marius, and then use those funds to upgrade Diaby to Mbeumo. I think that's quite simple. Eze to Palmer or wait 2 weeks? I'd wait for more confirmation in terms of Eze's injury. If he's ruled out against West Ham, then I would make the switch. But otherwise, ideally, I'd keep Eze for the next 2 and then sell to Palmer. Bowen to Gordon, what do you think? No. Ironically, if Bowen is available for Gameweek 14, I prefer him over Gordon, so no, I wouldn't do that. Thoughts on Son stats are lacking now, either swapping Son or Bowen to Mbeumo as I have Saka, Salah and Gordon. Yes, but then again, 3 offsides, which does pretty much rule out anything he did, so, you know, if he just timed those runs right, you're literally looking at some pretty high XG figures and some decent shot volume from today's match. I also think no Maddison does obviously impact Spurs quite significantly and that creativity, but also a bit of bad luck with Bentancur being injured because he looked pretty good in the opening portion of the game and Spurs were doing something quite different. I think Lo Celso was very impressive, probably their best player. But yeah, with Son, I still think he will deliver on certain occasions, even against City, but yeah, he's not as good of an FPL option right now as he was before all the injuries happened to Spurs at once against Chelsea. Ashton says, got 2 free transfers, debating who I should sell out of Diaby, Matoma and Udogie. Yeah, I mean, because of the fixture, you could keep Diaby for 1 more week. But yeah, I think I'd look at selling Matoma and Udogie first, and then sell Diaby the week afterwards when he plays Man City. But Diaby is definitely a sell, I think, in the weeks to come. And I'm looking to sell him this week, actually. So you kind of already know what I'm going to do. There's one, you know, really good asset in the midfield that I don't have for a similar price, and he's going to come in. I could even make the transfer this week, or not this week, right now, before the price rise, as someone mentioned earlier. Amir says, great gaming for you. Is it worth to go early to get Mbeumo and Gabriel for cash and Diaby today so I don't get priced out, or is it worth to wait for other transfers on Friday? I usually recommend to wait because information is more important than price rises and team value, in my opinion. Of course, everyone wants to have team value, and it's a great sensation, you could say, to be a price rise, but no. If possible, I would wait because Gabriel plays in the Champions League midweek. And if Arsenal win that, then they secure qualification to the knockout stages. So yeah, you just never know. I would personally wait before doing that. And of course, you are selling cash and Diaby, who have been really frustrating, but it is Bournemouth away next. So you just never know. It would not surprise me if they hoard. Ultimately, though, you are making the right moves and long-term you will benefit. So I like the transfers, but I would wait until Friday if possible. Which City defender do I buy in 2 game weeks? I'd say Kyle Walker. He looks like the most nailed on. He's the captain. He gets the odd bonus point here and there. And he can get the odd assist. But he's not going to be anything special, to be quite honest with you. But he's got the most FPL points amongst any City defender for a reason. And I'd probably go for him right now. Well, wildcard in 19. Best punts for the next 5 game weeks. I think Mbeumo and Pinnock from Brentford would be really good options for you. Raya, I'd say Saka and Saliba for Arsenal also look really good. And of course, Liverpool, you've got Tsimikas and Salah. From Manchester City, you're probably looking at just Haaland right now. But then from 16 onwards, you could consider an Alvarez if he can come back to form. Next 5 game weeks as well. I'm probably forgetting someone pretty major. Cole Palmer still, I think. Gordon is a good long-term option, not just for the next 5, but for the next 10. And that's the reason why I kept him. I captained Son and I want to cry. Yeah, I think just the nature of the game was very frustrating because playing against the high line, it's what he loves. He got into some good positions, but as we mentioned earlier, the timing of the runs was just a bit off. And it was down to fine margins, ultimately. Keep Fernandez. Bruno Fernandez, I'm assuming that is. Difficult one. He got the assist today, not too far from the bonus points, but I still don't trust Man United offensively. The fixtures aren't too bad, but I think there are much better midfielders elsewhere. Bowen, if he's fit. You've also got Mbeumo, Saka. I still prefer Son, to be honest. There's quite a lot of midfielders I prefer, Gordon even. But, of course, Bruno Fernandes is probably Man United's best player and their best FPL asset. Should I sell Bruno to Saka or Eze to Saka? Well, I'd wait for more information. If Eze is fit, I would sell Bruno to Saka. And then in the weeks to come, you can always sell Eze. And to be honest, if you don't have Mbeumo, you can make both transfers for a -4 hit or for 2 free transfers. Trippier to Lascelles and Son to Saka. Not sure if I'd do that because Botman might not be too far from a return. And that could be a really short-term move. It does open up funds for you in other areas, but I'm not so sure. It really depends what you're going to do with that extra money in the future. Son to Saka, you could do either way because Saka's cheaper. But yeah, I think I'd definitely do that. As for Trippier to Lascelles, I'm not so sure. Gibbs White looks like an amazing differential for next week. Yeah, really impressive in Game Week 13. That is true. And someone did ask me about him, I think, yesterday, and I wasn't too keen. So fair play to those of you that did go for him. But yeah, I'm a bit surprised by Gibbs White. I was backing him to do well at the beginning, so in pre-season, but hasn't really got going in terms of output. But maybe this could be the start of something good. I still prefer Palmer and Gordon, but he is a decent option that should be considered. Saint Ledger 84 says, morning from New Zealand, from the other side of the world. Still have a Stupinian. Any defenders out would target, especially with Gameweek 18 in mind, have double Newcastle, Cash and Gusto. If I'm not mistaken, I think Arsenal play Liverpool in 18, but regardless, in the fixtures before and afterwards, I think Saliba and these Arsenal defenders offer terrific value, so I'd still recommend them. Crystal Palace defenders is a bit different. The next 2 game weeks, good fixtures, but after that, it looks really poor for them. Lascelles and Trippier still look pretty good, but yeah, you're probably looking at Saliba and maybe a Man United defender. I think that's what you're mainly looking towards, but yeah, I don't think there's many standout defenders right now, unfortunately. Tsimikas is also another shout, to be fair, but once again, if I'm not mistaken, that game against Arsenal won't be easy for either side. Cathan says, I was planning to sell Dallo, and suddenly he hauled with Shaw back. What should I do with Dallo? Dallo to White or Saliba? Well, Man United have a good record away from home defensively. I think only Arsenal have conceded fewer goals. Ultimately, I think Arsenal have a better defence, and so far they've got the best defence in the league in terms of goals conceded and expected goals conceded. Yeah, I think Dallo to Saliba is a pretty good move either way, and it could be down to rotation. So I understand why you're looking to make that move, enjoy the haul, and then just get rid of him. The thing with Dallo is he is a bonus points machine, and of course the assist he got today really helped out, but even without them, he's very good for bonus points amongst Man United defenders. What was Pedro Porro's XG, XGA? I can check that for you because I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest with you. On FPL, if you go on the website, they will provide their own XG and expected goals against figures and stuff like that. But yeah, that's a different story in itself. Sell Solanke. Depends who you sell him to because, you've got Haaland, obviously. You've got Watkins, but he's entering some difficult fixtures from Gameweek 15 onwards. Alvarez has been off form. I think Darwin is the one you'd want to sell Solanke to. I'd really like Darwin long term. So, yeah, Solanke to Darwin. If you can do that, then I would do it. Sell Saka, Son, or Bowen for Mbeumo. I'd rather sell Son. And look, I'm not saying he can't haul. He's got a great record against Man City. He's not going to blank every single week just because Maddison's injured and Spurs have other injuries. But he's not as good of an FPL option right now as he was just a couple of weeks ago. JWall10 says Alvarez to Isak makes sense in 2 weeks' time. Yeah, Isak's another shout. I think if you're buying a forward right now, you're looking at Darwin Nunez or Isak, and then from 16 onwards, I think the shift will be towards Alvarez. Saka, Bowen or Mbeumo. My favourite of the 3 is Saka, just for the pure consistency. Bowen I'd keep either way, and Mbeumo looks really good for the next 5. Even with the blank in 18, it could be a double in Gameweek 20. So up until January, when he goes off to AFCON, I think Mbeumo looks really good. Eran Deep says Son to Saka. That's really popular, it seems. Diaby to Palmer, confirmed for me. And then I should do Cash to Saliba from -4 in Gameweek 14 or wait. I'd wait another week. Arsenal playing Wolves, and obviously Aston Villa face a trip to the Vitality Stadium at Bournemouth. But I don't think it's worth a -4 hit necessarily. So if you've already made those moves, which to be honest I wouldn't recommend, I would ease off a little bit, then yeah, I would maybe reconsider. And I think the priority for me would be Son to Saka, and yeah, Diaby to Palmer. I can see why you're doing it, but yeah, I'm not so sure if I would do it just yet. 49 with only 10 players, good stuff. I mean, it's kind of been a bit of a weird week. Those with 50 plus will be quite happy, I guess. And if it's a green arrow, it's a green arrow, and you take it. Morgan, Gibbs White, or Palmer? Still Palmer for me, but as we've always mentioned in the last couple of weeks, penalties have really inflated his returns. I need to see a bit more from him in terms of open play. And once we do, I think he can become a terrific option in FPL. I captained Son this week, and frankly, I've had enough of him. Fair enough. Would you consider Son to Mbeumo to free some funds? Yeah, I definitely would. Son facing Man City looks really difficult. And normally Spurs are Man City's bogey team, but I think that's because of the way Conte and Mourinho set up the teams. With Postecoglou playing a high line against Man City, it could be carnage, honestly. It would not surprise me if it was 5 or 6-0 to Man City. I'm not even exaggerating there. Hopefully it's a good game and it's a bit more competitive than that, but I'm kind of fearing the worst there for Tottenham. Isaac Mag says, thoughts on my current team? Areola, Turner, Trippier, Lamptey, Cash, Sufal, Mitchell, Saka, Salah, Bowen, Hwang, Palmer, Haaland, Edouard, Watkins, Lamptey to Gabriel, 1.1 million in the bank. It's in good shape. I think off the top of my head, Edouard isn't really someone I trust, but you probably play through the fixtures and keep him. I would try to upgrade one of your goalkeepers, especially Turner. So Turner to Raya would be ideal. In terms of maybe the rest of your squad, yeah, Hwang Hee-chan, it's just I don't trust Wolves offensively. Pedro Neto coming back fairly soon could really help Hwang Hee-chan, but yeah, maybe Hwang Hee-chan to Gordon or Mbumo. I think that's the two things I would do. Buy Mbumo in the midfield and possibly get Raya in for Turner. How would you do that? I mean, ideally it would be Hwang to Mbumo, but that would mean you can't do Turner to Raya just yet. So basically, at least one of those transfers I'd make, and then you can always delay the other one by making a downgrade in a future game week. MF says, I get every single transfer wrong this season. I went from Matoma to Eze after considering Gordon, Sterling, Palmer, and Kudus. To be fair, I still prefer Palmer over Sterling long term. And Sterling was a great free kick, but apart from that, he didn't really do too much. Kudus, yeah, he got the 2 assists, but I think Bowen is a better option long term. Gordon, of course, he's probably Newcastle's best attacker and best player this season, and not just in FPL, just in terms of general play. But yeah, look, it is what it is. I think those that went for Eze are really unlucky. It's an injury, it happens, and the Premier League and FPL can be brutal. Kulusevski should have scored that goal. Rice's positioning needs to be talked about more. He was literally at the right place at the right time clearing that ball. Yeah, Kulusevski should have scored, and his decision-making today was awful. He kept cutting in onto his left-hand side, and he never really did anything. Couldn't get the shot away. He doesn't have that pace, really, to get away from defenders, but he's got some pretty decent technique. He's good on the ball, but sometimes very wasteful in the final third. In terms of Declan Rice, I think he's been a fantastic signing for Arsenal, and it's very rare for you to say, something like that about a £100 million player, but he's worth every single dime at the moment. And yeah, his positioning, not just for that goal, but in general, he always senses danger very well, and he's been Arsenal's best player so far this season. Opinion on selling Son? I still think he's a good option. Not as good as he used to be a few weeks ago. If you can do Son to Saka or even Mbuma, I think it's definitely worth considering. And if it was me, I'd probably do it, because despite him having a good record against Man City, I'm not really sensing a competitive game there. As things stand, of course, things can change over the course of the week. If certain players come back, that could change things. But yeah, I think with Son, I'd be more inclined to sell right now. And like I've discussed all week, if I had Son heading into this Villa game, I would have kept him for Villa, possibly captain him, and then sell. Thinking Gordon in for Sarr, what do you think? Well, I think that's an amazing upgrade. I would do it. I'd have no hesitation. Bodro had 0.64 XGI today. He has on a lot of set pieces because of Maddison's absence. Yep. Another assist today as well. Very consistent. He's basically getting 4 to 6 points every single week. You probably love that from a defender. He's the only Spurs defensive coverage I'd consider right now, because I don't see where the clean sheets come from. I think they face Newcastle soon. They've got Man City next. So it's going to be difficult there for them. But I think with Pedro Porro, you play him every single week based on the attacking potential, apart from when he faces Liverpool away or Manchester City. Small red arrow to 45k before the last game, I can live with that. 45k, I mean, I'd rather have a red arrow and be in that position than get a green arrow and be around 1 million or below. The Life of Jay says, keep Sterling. While the fixtures long-term are still good, do I prefer Sterling over Mbumo and Gordon and players like that? Not necessarily, but I'd probably keep Sterling for now. He's showing some decent form, finally some consistency in terms of output. Let's see if he can keep it up. With Cash receiving his 4th yellow card this season, do you see him playing against Bournemouth as opposed to the more difficult fixtures of City and Arsenal? That's a good question. And he was subbed off at half-time. I think that could play a part, but I still expect him to start against Bournemouth, and Emery will probably tell him to just be very careful. He's walking on a tightrope, and I think Aston Villa will want Cash available for the Man City and Arsenal games, as you say, but I don't see him being benched against Bournemouth. But yeah, I think he's been pretty awful. That kind of leads into Zaid's question. Apart from that massive return against Burnley back in Game Week 3, and he had a pretty decent start for the first 7 game weeks. Since then, he's been absolutely awful FPL-wise. Thoughts on Ben White? Just came back from injury. He's still a good FPL asset, but he is the most expensive. I'd rather go for Saliba. Zinchenko's looking good right now, but as I said yesterday, there will be rotation with Tomiyasu once Ben White gets back into the team. 27 points all out. You can see how awful my team is doing. Yeah, I just saw on the Discord server there way saying it's a good team and you're a bit unlucky there, but that's FPL. A few weeks ago, I had a kind of similar situation, awful week, low score, and you know, it's not like my team was necessarily that bad. It happens, it ebbs and flows for all of us, and hopefully luck is on your side next week. With Saliba and Ben White almost the same price, surely Ben White is a better pick. I disagree. I still prefer Saliba. He's slightly cheaper, better for bonus points right now, and he's starting every single game. With Ben White, I know he didn't start the last game or the last two because of injury, but even in the Champions League, it was Ben White being rested against Lens in match day 2, and Saliba's played every single Champions League and Premier League game. So, yeah, I still prefer Saliba. Only got 40 points. Yeah, there are, you know, it's kind of interesting. Some people are getting 50 to 60 points. I think that's kind of the average I'm seeing in the live chat, but there are some people with 40 or below. I do feel for you, but it's only 1 week. There's a long way to go. And trust me, you know, this is one of my better weeks this season, and it's down to Gordon, really, and Lascelles, you know, so fine margins, really, and luck is certainly involved in FPL. Thoughts on Son moving forward? We've covered this, so I'm not going to, you know, repeat myself too much. But I think with Son, I'm more inclined to sell him right now. I'll probably discuss him in the trans tips video later this week, and you can see my full-on details and in-depth analysis on it. But yeah, I would be tempted to sell him to Mbeumo. I can see why you're doing that, and then bringing Haaland back. I'd be tempted to do that for a -4. I feel like Man City could score quite a few versus Tottenham. Yeah, same here. And look, Tottenham's defence was pretty good before the Chelsea game, but once Van der Ven got the injury, Romero suspended, you know, things have gone downhill ever since. But their biggest problem, I think, is Maddison's injury, because if he was still available, I think Spurs will probably score a few more goals against Wolves and all these games they've lost, basically. So, yeah, I think Maddison's the biggest miss. Van der Ven at the back, probably next up. And right now, you know, you probably get the sensation they're going to concede 2 or more goals every single game. As a situation, I don't know the exact updates provided by Roy Hodgson. I'll have a quick look now and see what he said yesterday, but I don't think I can get it up here, unfortunately. Let's see if I got an update. Yeah, he said yesterday, we don't know how serious it is. The way I saw it, he was brought down and the player landed on him, damaging his ankle. So, yeah, we don't know how things are. Based on what he's saying, you know, you would maybe guess he's not going to play in Gameweek 14, but definitely wait for more updates later in the week. We might get some more, you know, positive news. Free hit Gameweek 18. I was actually thinking of putting a poll out to ask the community what you lot are going to do, basically. But my current plan is not to free hit. That could certainly change over the next few weeks, because even if I buy Mbeumo today or later, heading into Gameweek 14, I would only have Mbeumo and Haaland as things stand. So I could definitely navigate that blank. 70 points this week, good stuff. Was going to do Bowen to Gordon. To be fair, though, Bowen is still a long-term hold, so it's not a bad decision. What do you think about that late Havertz goal? Any chance he transforms to a left back at Arsenal? And can you explain the first offside decision? Well, look, I'm going to be naturally biased on the first offside, but from one angle I saw, he looked onside, and from another, he looked offside. So it was difficult. You would assume they have all the angles, and it was the right decision. It was minimal either way, very marginal. In terms of Havertz, he did play up front technically yesterday. He's a very versatile player. That's one thing he does have. He's good off the ball, but we haven't really seen him take a game by the scruff of the neck or make the difference until yesterday. So hopefully it's the start of many things to come. I've kind of backed him, or tried to back him, the whole time. You know, in games like against Man United, I was very vocal with my criticism about him, but, you know, I do want him to work out. I think the people hating on him and criticizing him, it only makes me want to support him even more. But look, at the end of the day, he's a big signing. You know, he will be used to this sort of pressure. He plays for Germany, played for Chelsea before, and by Leverkusen. And look, he's paid to do all this, and I am backing him to do better, but I'm not so sure if it's going to be the start of something massive. I'd give a bit more time, to be honest, and let's see if he can be consistent. I sold Gordon to Eze. Is Eze worth keeping a fit? Yeah. The next two he certainly is. Prince Alvin says Solanke replacement with 0 in the bank with Saka, Bowen and Mbeumo. Difficult one, because the strikers I like Ferguson, they're not nailed on. And then you've got Isak and Darwin, they're more expensive. So a bit tricky in your situation there, Prince Alvin. Yeah, Solanke's a difficult one. It is a difficult one, to be quite honest with you. And it must have been very frustrating for those of you that bought him, you know, with an eye of that Sheffield United fixture. You see Bournemouth win 3-0, and then, you know, he doesn't even produce a single return. So that is very unfortunate. But I'm not so sure if I just sell him yet. Apologies for the voice crack, but my voice is pretty much going anyway. It looks like I'm a bit ill at the moment. But we do have over 200 viewers. Let's be sure to get this stream to over 150 likes. That would definitely be appreciated. It costs nothing, and we are going through many questions as always. But yeah, I think with Solanke, I'd keep him. Unless you can go to Darwin or Isak. I don't really think it's worth going to another striker right now. Welcome, Beardy. Good to see you. As always, it's a pleasure seeing you in the comment section as well. Patrick says, I'm keeping Wissa and Boeing for this week, but do you think it's worth taking out Son, Watkins for Salah and Wood for a -4, or keep going without Salah? To be honest, the issue there is you're selling Son and Watkins, and I really like Watkins for Gameweek 14. So, as much as I like Salah, I'm not sure if I would sell Watkins and Son for a -4 hit. Keep Jota. Well, the fixtures are there, but I would expect Diaz to displace him, so I think I'd sell him. So yeah, the cash question I've already answered, yeah. Is Zinchenko an option? Yes, he is, but be prepared for benchings. 1, he's injury prone. 2, he is also rotating with Tomiyasu, and up until this point in the season, Tomiyasu has been first choice, especially in recent weeks, but the only reason Zinchenko's playing is because Ben White has been injured. Best replacement for Awani. I still like Solanke, but my overall preference, and I know it's more expensive, is Darwin Nunez and Isak. 42 points with Hwang still to go. Red arrow from 71k to 132k this week. Not ideal. It's a pretty poor week in terms of score, but your rank is still very good. I've held Bruno for so long. Keeps getting points and making chances. Plays full 90 every game and on pens. Keep. Yeah, he's always a threat, and if he didn't give away that penalty to Rashford, you could have been looking at 11 plus points quite easily. So with Bruno Fernandes, he is a bit frustrating, and I still don't trust Man United fully in the attack, but obviously today they look better. I still think it really depends, because let's say, for example, you don't have Saka or Mbeumo, and you're happy with the rest of your midfield. I would be looking at selling Bruno to one of those players, for example. But yeah, you can have a midfield which consists of Bruno, Saka, Mbeumo, and anyone else you want, like Palmer or Gordon. So yeah, you can keep Bruno. I don't think he's a bad pick, but I still think he's quite frustrating, and he's not going to reach the same heights as he has done in recent seasons. Welcome, Alex. All good. What about you? Thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully I can survive for the rest of the stream. I'm a big fan of Rice. Tough they ended up joining Arsenal. Yeah, I always thought he'd go to Chelsea. He was a Chelsea fan, played in the academy. So yeah, things are like that. Welcome, Alejandro. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get for every single question, it looks like. So I do apologise for that. The overall cup in FPL starts in Gameweek 15. My team looks pretty good for Gameweek 15. Oh, I didn't even know that. I really don't pay attention to the cup. Good luck with that, and let's see how it goes. But yeah, the cup is definitely down to luck. That is, you know, FPL itself already relies a lot on luck. The cup is something different entirely. I captain Gordon. Good stuff. Fair play. That's a really good shout there. I want to get rid of Cash ASAP, even for a -4. I got Gabriel, Lascelles, Mitchell, and Tsimikas. Yeah, I can see why. The thing is, though, you're already covering most of the best defenders for Gameweek 14. So, you know, you're already going to be starting Cash, Tsimikas, and maybe Mitchell or Lascelles. I mean, I'm not sure if I'd take a -4 hit. I know Cash has been awful. You're desperate to get rid of him, but I'd be tempted to start him, then sell him afterwards for free. I don't think you really need to, because who are you going to sell him to? That's my question. Sell Son and Odegaard for Gordon and Mbeumo, or sell Antonio and Son. Odegaard has been very disappointing this season. Just came back from injury. I'd sell... that's difficult, though. I'd rather sell Antonio and Son, because Antonio is ruled out for the next couple of weeks. At least with Odegaard, he is playing at the moment, but then it depends on who you can get for Antonio. And if you can't get Isak or Darwin or Alvarez or any good striker over 7 million, then maybe your answer would be selling Odegaard, going from Odegaard to Mbeumo. It's all about context and which players you would buy as well. Saying, despite a lot of criticism from the community since he's a Chelsea player, but I still hope him to do even well now. Yeah, a lot of Chelsea fans hate him, which I do find a bit strange, because he did score a win in a Champions League final. Nunez or Isak? I still prefer Darwin. I'm going to go for him. Stekon says Alvarez to Watkins for a -4, or take the hit to get rid of Cash. Difficult one, because with Watkins, he is a better option than Alvarez. That's quite clear, but he is facing Man City and Arsenal in the next 3. Both at home, though. I probably would back Watkins to score in at least one of those games, and the Bournemouth one, so... yeah, I'd take the hit to do Alvarez to Watkins. That's what I'd personally do. Then again, Alvarez against this Tottenham team, he did score last time he played against Tottenham at home, but yeah, I think Alvarez to Watkins is what I'd rather do. Cash is probably a sell afterwards, but he can also be quite useful in Gameweek 18. but Tomiyasu can't do what Zinchenko offers. Well, they're different players, different profiles. Tomiyasu was originally a centre-back. He can play right-back and left-back. And to be honest, with Tomiyasu, he's more solid defensively. Against Chelsea, for example, only last month, Zinchenko was awful. And up until that point, he was having an awful season, whilst Tomiyasu's been much more impressive in this campaign. So, you know, I think Zinchenko, you're right. He does have things that Tomiyasu doesn't. But I have to say, Tomiyasu has inverted well this season, and he also gives Arsenal something different. He can win aerial duels quite high up the pitch, and it gives Arsenal a bit more verticality in their play. Is Cash still a sell? Yes, but if you've already got Saliba, Arsenal defender, Crystal Palace defenders, a Newcastle defender, you know, it all depends about who you can buy and who you're missing in the defence. Because if you're already kind of set, then you don't really need to sell him, if you catch my drift, and he can be useful in Game Week 18. Hi Dylan, do you think it's worth getting Pinnock this week? Yeah, I think Pinnock, I have to say, he played very well against Arsenal. And the Argentinian commentator kept saying he looks like Morgan Freeman. Yeah, I think he was pretty good in that game, and Brentford looked very solid. They were really well organised, made things difficult for Arsenal, and it was so difficult for them to create any chances. So, yeah, I don't mind Pinnock. I'm seeing him get a lot of love on Twitter, and I think he could be a decent, cheap defender. I'd rather go for him than Colwill. And I talked about this yesterday where someone was asking me my thoughts on Colwill. He's not even nailed on to start. You've got Cucurella starting on the left-hand side right now, and I just wouldn't go there. Should I sell Diaby for Mbumo, even though I would need to play Trippier and Lascelles? Yeah, I wouldn't mind that, to be honest. I know Man United look good today, but, you know, you would back Newcastle at St James's Park to beat Man United. Would you hold Nunez or take him out for Isak? I'd definitely hold Nunez. Even if you had Isak and you're looking to go to Nunez, I'd keep what you have, basically. If you have neither, I still prefer Darwin, just from what I've seen this season. But you also have to look at the other side of it, and maybe Isak is quite nailed on up until Game Week 18, whilst Wilson is out. The problem is, once Wilson comes back, that is a big issue. But yeah, you're right. That is true. Nunez has been in and out of the team like a yo-yo, but so is Isak when Wilson is also available. The big kind of, let's say, the biggest selling point now is that Wilson is out at the moment. I captained Bowen and he didn't play, so will he be auto-subbed for my second bench player, Harvey Elliott, because my bench player didn't play? Yes, he will be auto-subbed, and your captain will become Saka. Yes, and his points will be doubled. Captain thoughts for next week is currently on Salah, but as I mentioned earlier, I would back Man City to score quite a lot of goals against Tottenham, at least 3. That's what I'm saying right now, my early prediction. I think Man City score 3+ goals against Spurs. A 5 or 6-0 or 6-1, 6-2 would not surprise me. But ultimately, I think Man City are capable of absolute damage next week. So it's between Haaland and Salah for me. In terms of other, players to look at, maybe Mbumo, I think would be in the top 3 or 5, but Salah and Haaland are the best captains once again. Palmer or Gordon? Probably Gordon, just because he's shown more from open play. I've got him in my team, so you can have an insight into who I prefer. But yeah, Palmer's still good. He's not suddenly a bad option, but he does rely a lot on penalties, in my opinion. 250k, 235k with Hwang to play. I think top 100k is possible by the end of the week. Thoughts on keeping Gvardiol very long term? I just can't find a better fifth defender. I'll be honest, I think that's the main issue for a lot of us. I think right now, if I'm building kind of a wildcard team, I'd probably go for Saliba, Joachim Andersen, let's say, Lascelles, Tsimikas, and then the fifth defender would be either from Man United or it would be Pinnock. So you're not really looking at a huge upgrade there either way. Best defenders to replace Cash in Game Week 15. In Game Week 15, okay. I'd say Pinnock still is pretty good. Yeah, I think Pinnock is a decent shout. Mikalenko is also quite good. The problem with Everton is that they've got some good fixtures, but they're sprinkled, and they've got a lot of bad fixtures before and afterwards. It's kind of sandwiched. So, yeah, they don't really have a good run of games up until April. I got Eze last minute for Matoma with the idea of selling him this week for Mbumo. Well, yeah, I already said this before. I wouldn't have done that personally in terms of buying Eze just for 1 week. I would have bought him for the next 3. Either way, I think that makes sense anyway. Mbumo's a great move long term. He's got Luton Town at home as well next, so you'd probably back him to do really well. I would do it, but don't make early transfers if possible. Wait a little bit more. Thoughts on Bowen transfer tonight? Likely to go down, and Gordon and Mbumo likely to go up. Yeah, let's actually cover that. Thank you very much for that, Chris. Nice segue now into the price changes. So, Let's just refresh the page here. FPLstatistics.co.uk. As you mentioned, Mbeumo, Gordon, and Saliba all could go up in price tonight. And those going down include Bowen and Neto potentially. It's not completely locked in, but there is a chance that those players could rise and fall, or fall, should I say, in price tonight. If not, it'll probably be later in the week. But either way with Bowen, I'd be inclined to keep him because let's put it this way. I'd rather keep Bowen, have him go down in price, and then find out he's starting later in the week than selling him right now, getting a bit of value from that move, Bowen to Mbeumo, for example, and then finding out that Bowen's available, because ideally I would have both in my team. So yeah, in my personal opinion, I'd keep Bowen either way. With Mbeumo, you could make an early switch like Diaby to Mbeumo. I'm even considering it myself, but honestly, I don't think it's necessary. I've got a lot of money in the bank with my future transfer plans, so at the moment, I think I'll hold. So let's go through some different screens. In terms of the FDR, Bournemouth are now top, and they just won 3-0 against, or 3-1 against Sheffield United. Newcastle, Burnley, Chelsea, and Forest are in the top 5. Arsenal and Liverpool are just behind them. And in terms of the bottom 5, we've got Manchester City right down there at the bottom, mainly due to that blanking Gameweek 18. Palace, Luton, Everton, and Spurs are in the bottom 5. Things aren't looking good there for the Lily Whites, but Spurs can still do something in these games, especially West Ham. And I'd also say Forest, Everton, and Brighton, but Man City and Newcastle looks very tough indeed. In terms of predicted points, Haaland is top, Salah is second, but wait, is that true? Oh yeah, for some reason it's actually gone. It's switched it again, so that is over the next 4 game weeks. In terms of now, well, Haaland is still top, 8.5, Salah's second with 7.4, Nunez, Saka, and Mbeumo complete the top 5. Then we've got Gordon, Watkins, Martinelli, Trent, and Odegaard. And by the way, yesterday in the predicted points, Gordon was very high up. He was around this position for the highest scoring players in Gameweek 13, and he delivered a 13-pointer. So, yeah, things are looking good for Gordon. The algorithms do back him even from yesterday, before the game even happened. So let's see what happens in the end. In terms of Draft Hound, I definitely encourage you to check them out. They are suggestions to do Bowen to Mbeumo and Anderson to Kyle Walker. But to give you an insight into my current transfer plans, if we go to fpl.team, I'll discuss this in the team selection video. I am considering buying Raya for Turner, dropping Areola to the bench, starting Raya, double up in Arsenal defence against Wolves at home, keeping cash for now, which does seem a bit ridiculous, and I would also buy Mbeumo for Diaby, and that will be with 2 free transfers. I'd still have 0.5 million in the bank, so not really any need to make early transfers in my personal situation. Salah's currently the captain, but it could switch to Haaland. Mbeumo would be third in terms of my favourite captaincy options in Gameweek 14. But yeah, that's something I could do. Sort out 2 of my weaknesses. Diaby, look, has been pretty good for me, but very disappointing today, and I think Mbeumo is a long-term upgrade. And as for Raya, I think that's really key, because the goalkeepers have been pretty awful this season. You've got Johnston, who's done pretty well in certain game weeks. I think Raya's been quite consistent, and if you look at the amount of points he gets per 90, because he has missed a lot of games, he has been very impressive, and he's got the highest points per game of any goalkeeper. So I am looking at buying him, but of course, a double up in any defence is always going to bring an element of risk to it. The last thing I want to show you is the captaincy for Gameweek 13. For the top 250k, Haaland was captain by almost half of the game, but not a huge difference between him and second place Mohamed Salah. Son was third, Saka fourth, and Ollie Watkins was fifth. Even Bowen was right up there in 6th position, despite missing out entirely. And you can see a lot of different names in there, but the top 4 is what you kind of expect. Maybe a bit of a surprise that it was so close in terms of the captaincy options this week. And in the end, not much difference between Haaland, Salah, and Saka. But yeah, in the end, those that really did well, I mean, well, yeah, to be honest, I saw someone captain Gordon earlier, but that wasn't very popular, I'll tell you that for sure. Let's now go back to my team. And in terms of the bonus points, Dallo got all 3 bonus points for Manchester United. And I think Onana was able to usurp and pip Bruno Fernandes to that final bonus point. In the end, Fernandes was 5th or 6th in the bonus points rankings. Maguire unironically saving my week. Yeah, he made a really good, I think it was a block on Dominic Calvert-Lewin to prevent that. So yeah, I think Maguire, I don't think he had the greatest of games anyway, but he was clutch in that moment. Have you now seen Haaland keep score despite De Bruyne's injury? Yeah, this is what I was saying. There was this big narrative about Haaland being useless without De Bruyne, and I always debunked it. I said, yeah, he might not be as good without De Bruyne, but that doesn't mean he's suddenly bad, and he's still got more goals than games played. So there you go. So Eze for Parma, I'd keep Eze for now and wait for more updates. If Eze is fit, keep him for the next two, and then you can sell him to Parma. If I told you that you can get a starting City striker for 7 million, you'd buy him. Yeah, look, I don't think Alvarez is necessarily a sell, but he has been very frustrating. And I think for those that are looking to sell now, they might want to get him back for Game Week 16 onwards. Sambi Lokonga puts his team. Any suggestions? Well, you've already got Mbeumo, that's good. You've got Raya, is it? So that's pretty good as well. Kieran Trippier, Gabriel Mitchell, Lascelles. Your team is in quite good shape, to be honest. I don't really see anything that kind of, screams out to me you need to make a transfer, because I'd play Raya this week. I'd play Trippier, Gabriel, and I think the third defender for this week isn't looking that great. But then who do you go to anyway? Maybe you could do Baldock to Pinnock, or even Mikalenko. That could be a shout for you. But apart from that, I think the rest of your team looks very good. If Bowen is available, you could consider Son to Bowen. And then what you do with the rest of the money, I'm not so sure. Alvarez, look, as much as he's been a bit frustrating, he is still pretty good. So in my opinion there, Sambi, there's one of two transfers I would make. Either Baldock to Pinnock or Alvarez to Darwin Nunez / Isak. I think that's what I'd do. Having said that, as we just discussed there with Tromekid, Alvarez isn't necessarily a sell. You're just going to a striker with better fixtures and better form. Because most Chelsea fans think he's a flop, he can't fulfill the expectations, which they think Palmer can do now. Yeah, look, Havertz is a very frustrating player. I think at Leverkusen he showed so much potential. I think at Chelsea he was just so inconsistent. He's also been the same with Arsenal. But I think it's also a question of him being a scapegoat at Arsenal. And, people were blaming him for Arsenal, pretty much lacking fluidity. And I just don't think that's true. But with Havertz, it's kind of a difficult one. He's a bit of an enigma, to be quite honest with you. Just the way he plays, his attitude, you could say, maybe his body language, which is something that people criticised Ozil for. But yeah, with Havertz, let's wait and see if he can be consistent. But so far, the history will suggest that he won't be. I hope he will turn things around, though, of course. KDB's going to be back soon. Yeah, I was watching the F1. He was doing an interview with Martin Brundle. And he seemed quite optimistic that he could be back after the new year. What do you think about United now? It's just one game. I know Everton have looked pretty good this season, but especially in recent weeks. But at Goodison Park, their record has been actually quite awful, which is surprising because their fans are very loud. It's an old stadium, and especially after that ban, the deduction of points. We all kind of anticipated an Everton win or for them to do something, and it just didn't really materialise. But with United, good performance, but I wouldn't really be too carried away. And I think Newcastle next week could show us why. So a dog for Saliba -4. For a -4, long term it will pay off, but I just question whether you can just maybe play someone else like Cash, or I'm not even sure what other defenders you have, even Lascelles. I wouldn't mind playing Lascelles this week against Man United. Yeah, but to be fair, he just came back from injury, but Odegaard has been very inconsistent. I think that's the way to sum up his season. What else do we have? Should I get Trent? Liverpool play Fulham at home next. I'd rather go for Tsimikas, to be honest. I just don't really think Trent is worth the money. I think he had a pretty poor game yesterday, which was obviously covered up by the goal. But yeah, look, Trent, a lot of people are looking at Trippier to Trent. Similar price, they can do it. I'm not completely against it, but I think Tsimikas could pretty much match him, and he's also much cheaper. Should I do Diaby to Mbeumo early as 0 in the bank? Yeah, in that situation, I think I would. It's very risky, though, I have to say that. But yeah, if you're happy with the rest of your midfielders, I would do it. PJ0431 says, Cash and Bowen to Pinnock and Gibbs-White. No. I'd rather keep Bowen. I think he's a much better option than Gibbs-White. And if Bowen is fit, I think that's a big mistake. I did Trippier to Lascelles and Son to Salah for a -4. Interesting one. I think overall that looks good for now. But once Botman comes back, there's no guarantee Lascelles will play in the future, to be honest. So let's wait and see how long that lasts. Trippier is still a decent option. Hit the crossbar yesterday. I think overall, good transfers, but I'm a bit concerned about when Botman comes back. It's all good, Tezza. What about you? Bowen's price is dropping tonight and Mbeumo's is rising tonight. Yeah, but Bowen is more expensive. I wouldn't do it. And also, Bowen could be available for Gameweek 14. He's got good long-term fixtures, and he's been very consistent. I just don't really see a need to sell him unless he is ruled out definitively. If Tsimikas plays lots of minutes in Europa, I'll be honest though, mate, it's a good question you raised, but the last time I thought about this, against Toulouse, he had a stinker of a game. He got subbed off at half-time. He made a mistake which led to Toulouse's first goal. Just a few days later, they played Brentford. And, I thought, you know what, Joe Gomez is going to play. It ends up that Joe Gomez is not even in the squad. He's injured. Tsimikas starts, gets 15 points. So it's worth considering, of course, but sometimes you just play him. You play him because of the fixture, and you see what happens, basically. Yeah, Havertz can have the composure at times. He does seem like a bit of a, I don't know if this is the right word, like a cold character. I mean, a lot of Germans have this, or people have this perception of Germans having that sort of thing, but yeah, I don't know. With Havertz, though, he is a very frustrating player, no matter if he's composed or not. Thanks for your help, 53 points, plus 9 points from Saka and Harvey Elliott to go. Should be a green arrow from 900k. 9 points from Saka and Harvey Elliott to go, so you're going to have 62 overall. That's pretty good stuff, and yep, that should be, for sure. Best 4-point family and defender. There's not really a whole host of defenders, but Mikalenko's still decent. I think Pinnock could be quite good, considering the fixtures, so yeah, I think right now, if I'm buying a 4-point family and defender, it's probably going to be Pinnock. Tsimikas is a bit more expensive, otherwise I'd count him. But yeah, my answer will be Pinnock. To be fair, West Ham's fixtures are not that good. To be honest, though, you say they're not that good, but let's actually go through the fixtures. Let's go through them on Fantasy Football Hub. So let's actually take a look at West Ham. They are currently mid-table in terms of the FDR. So Crystal Palace at home, I think that's a pretty decent fixture. I know Palace have one of the best defensive records, but it's a home fixture. Bowen can definitely do well there. Tottenham away, it looks tough on paper, but the way they're defending right now, Bowen could easily score a brace or do really well there. Fulham away, good fixture. Wolves at home and Man United at home. I mean, to be honest, Arsenal away is the only tough fixture, I think, in terms of, obviously, Tottenham, look, it is a tough fixture overall. It's a London derby. But the way they're defending, I think Bowen can do well in that game. And Arsenal's the only elite defence that they have over the next 6. So I honestly just don't really see West Ham's fixtures being that bad. I think they're quite good, actually, to be honest. But it is mid-table in terms of the FDR, which, to be honest, does back up your point. Let's now go back to my team and go back to your questions. Just move Bowen to Mbeumo, 100% nailed penalty taker versus a slightly injured one-man attack. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't really see... Look, Mbeumo, do I prefer Mbeumo over Bowen over the next 5? Yes, I do, and I can see that. But I just don't really understand why so many people are selling Bowen right now. That's just my personal take on it. I'm having a bad season, 5.5 million. Do you have any tips for me to get up the positions? It's difficult, of course. I was in a similar position literally this time last month. I was around 3 million back in Game Week 7. And then I played the wild card, and look, you just need a lot of luck sometimes. It ultimately comes down to that. But I think in terms of things you can control, be patient, give your transfers time to breathe and to prove themselves. And I'd also now be looking ahead, be proactive. So, for example, with Mbeumo, everyone's going to buy him this week. Some people bought him last week, and to be honest, I think that transfer was still quite good. But now you want to be ahead of the curve, even if it means buying a Cole Palmer when the fixtures don't look great for the next 2. You still could buy that sort of player and they can make the difference. So it's a difficult one. There's no kind of recipe or formula that's going to help you. But ultimately, I think patience is definitely the key word. Don't be in a rush to, be aggressive and suddenly do things you normally wouldn't. Keep playing your game, be patient, and I think things will fall in your favour. Who should you captain, Haaland or Salah next game? It is early. Obviously, it's a reaction stream. I'll give you my initial thoughts, and that is for me to captain Salah at the moment. But I really like Haaland against Tottenham. I really do. I think a brace or hat-trick is possible. Sterling was mentioned earlier in the stream. Great free kick. He has been quite consistent recently, but I still prefer Palmer overall. Chelsea's fixtures are looking promising. Yep. Well, yeah. Cash to Reece James. Yeah, I think that's a move you could make around Game Week 15 when James comes back from suspension. And yeah, to be honest, I'm still quite interested in James, but I don't know. I just don't have that trust in him because of his fitness issues. Transferring Gabriel tonight. If possible, wait, because he does play midweek on the Wednesday against Lens. I would be very careful about that. What do you think about Ramsdale? Look, he was good last season, but at the end of the campaign, it wasn't just him. A lot of Arsenal players kind of crumbled. The injuries obviously played a part as well, but Ramsdale can be a bag of nerves, and we saw it yesterday. He seems like he's a bit too, I don't know, he's trying so hard to do everything right and to impress the manager, and it's just not working. But you have to say, look, you have to look at both halves. Awful in the first half, should have led in Brentford scoring, but in the second half he recovered very well, did what he had to, was comfortable, composed, dealt with all the crosses that came his way, and he's not going to play the next Premier League game. He's not going to play in the Champions League, I think. David Raya is the number one, and you can kind of tell by Arteta's reaction in the press conferences and the interviews, and even when he made the mistake. The king of assists, De Bruyne, will be back soon. Will you take him back? I've never really had De Bruyne that often in FPL, to be quite honest with you. Very injury prone. You've also got Haaland already to cover the City attack. Salah for a similar price is an even better FPL option generally. But you never know. I say never, but at the moment I'm not really interested in De Bruyne. Essential players on the wildcard: Mbeumo, Saka, and of course maybe essential isn't the right word for them, but they are two of the best options in the midfield. Bowen, if he's fit, I still like him. Gordon is now going to be everyone's cup of tea. Haaland, of course, goes without saying. At the back, I'd say Saliba, Tsimikas. Those are the sorts of options you want to go for. In the goalkeeper position, probably Raya, based on fixtures and clean sheet chances. My problem with Bowen is that I got him at 7.3, so I have to sell him at 7.7, and Mbeumo's rising tonight. Fair enough. I just don't really see why so many people are going this sort of direction, selling Bowen. Ideally, I'd have both, and if that's the only way of getting Mbeumo, fair enough, go for it. But yeah, if possible, I just encourage people to wait as well. For more updates, you just never know. Should transfer cash out or should I keep him? I have Bowen, but I won't transfer him till last moment. If you don't have Saliba or another defender you really want, even if it's a Pinnock, then fair enough, I would make the move. But my current thinking with cash is to keep him for Bournemouth, then bench him against City and Arsenal, and possibly keep up until Game Week 18 and then reassess after that blank game week. For some Colwill in for cash, I wouldn't go for Colwill. He came off the bench the other day, yesterday, and even against Tottenham, you've got Cucurella coming on for him at half-time. I just don't really like that rotation. If you want a Chelsea defender, it is Reece James when he comes back from suspension. I'm not really a big fan of Colwill, to be honest. I'd rather go for Pinnock. Osimhen is Chelsea's top target in January. Yeah, I actually saw something today about Arsenal going for him as well, from a reliable source. Arsenal definitely need that sort of clinical striker and something different up front. Transfer Son out for Saka from -4. I'm not sure if I'd do it from -4. How did Doku get 3 additional points? To be fair, he played well. He also completed, I think it was 9 dribbles. Whether you kind of count all of them or not, I think he played quite well. It's just the end product wasn't really there. Luton not that bad to target now. I think Luton in home matches will be pretty tough to beat. You know, Arsenal go there in a couple of weeks. I wouldn't captain Saka there, to be honest, but I think in terms of a team having Luton Town at home, I'd still fancy those sorts of players like Mbeumo, for example, you know, to get a goal and then 3 bonus points or something like that. So yeah, Luton are looking better. And I think particularly away from home, when Luton, you know, are in the home ground, I think that could be tough. But I'd still back any team facing Luton Town in their own stadium. Fabian says, hey mate, thoughts on slowly transferring City and Brentford assets out before Game Week 18, then use wildcard Game Week 19 to bring them back? Yeah, there's several ways to tackle this. Of course, some people will free hit in Game Week 18. Some people will even bench Haaland and Mbeumo in Game Week 18. I could do that, for example. I think that's a pretty decent shout, to be fair, but it depends how many City and Brentford assets you have. For example, if you've got Alvarez right now, you might be inclined to sell, but then you might also want him for 16 and 17 before you ultimately sell him anyway. So it really depends about timing and some luck, but I think that's not a bad strategy. What I'm currently leaning towards myself is basically keeping Mbeumo and Haaland in Game Week 18 and benching them. What's your ideal nailed 11 plus 2 subs given the fixture congestion coming up? I'll cover this in the best wildcard team video. I think that's the best way to do it, but off the top of my head, I'd say Raya and Areola as the goalkeepers. Defenders, I'd say Saliba, Tsimikas. I'd go for Pinnock. I think nailed on defenders are very important at this stage. I'd go for Lascelles as things stand. And I think the 5th defender's a bit tough, but I'd maybe go for Gay, Anderson or Mitchell. Unfortunately, the fixtures long-term aren't great. And despite their defence being horrific at the moment, I think Pedro Porro deserves mentioning because his attacking potential is still great. He's on set pieces, so he's another one to consider in the back line. And of course, Man United defenders like Dalot, Maguire look okay. Mikalenko also. So take your pick out of those. It's basically Saliba, Lascelles, Tsimikas, and Pinnock. And then your fifth defender is, basically what you want to go for out of the others I mentioned. In terms of midfielders, I'd say Salah, Saka, Gordon, Bowen if he's fit, and Mbeumo. That's my favourite midfield five at the moment. And also Palmer will be very popular by Gameweek 16. And forwards is still Haaland and Watkins for me. But the alternatives to that kind of template duo is Isak and Alvarez. And Darwin Nunez. I'd rather go for Darwin over Alvarez right now. So that pretty much covers it, really. In terms of like your other player, your 12th player, it could be one of those defenders I mentioned, basically. Doku played well and got free bonus. Yeah, I also think he played quite well. If I keep Eze for the next two, then Hwang Hee-chan to Mbeumo or Son to Mbeumo? Good question. I'd still prefer doing Hwang Hee-chan to Mbeumo. I still think Son has something to offer in the next couple of weeks, but he is very frustrating at the moment. Son out, Palmer in? Not so sure I'd do that. To be honest, I still prefer Son. What about Isak? Yeah, I just mentioned him now. I think he's a decent option up until Wilson returns from injury. Up until Gameweek 18 even, he could be a very good striker solution. In terms of covering the Newcastle attack, I think Gordon is my preference. Then it'd be Isak, but of course, he's looking pretty good at the moment. It's difficult with Alvarez because he's in poor form. The underlying numbers aren't great, but he's got some good long-term fixtures. And I think with Alvarez, he's still very good value for his price. So if it was me, I'd be inclined to sell, but I don't think he's a priority sell. Let's put it that way. So Alvarez to Isak or Darwin Nunez would be on the cards if I had Alvarez. Noah Singh, thank you very much. And also a good rank there for you. Hopefully we can push up and get to even bigger heights by next game week. And I'm actually expecting that game week to be quite high scoring when I'm looking at it. But then again, maybe I'm influenced too much by predicted points. Have you seen Tottenham start a good season and then they are losing matches? What do you think is the problem with Tottenham? Well, with all bias aside, because I think long-term viewers will know who I support, but the main issue is quite clear. It's the injuries and suspensions. I think that Chelsea game was a huge blow psychologically. Losing to a rival like that at home, the way the game unfolded, and also just Maddison being injured. That was always quite likely to happen, unfortunately, because Maddison is injury-prone, and he is the game changer for them. Then you look at the back, Mickey van der Ven and Romero, one of the best centre-back partnerships in the league so far this season. Both of them out. Romero should be back soon, of course, after the suspension. Van der Ven is out until the new year, basically. So that is pretty much the main reason. It's a very basic analysis, but it's also the true one, in my opinion. Then you've also got Tottenham constantly playing the same style. It's very good to watch. The matches are amazing to watch. But, for example, in the Chelsea game, you're down to 10 men, then you're down to 9 men. To constantly play a high line, I think is very naive and stubborn by the manager. He's done a lot right this season. A lot would argue he's been the best manager in the Premier League so far, but you also have to be a bit, let's say, versatile. You have to adapt to the situation and the players you have. And you saw from the lineup they put today, they're trying to still play the same way. Putting Emerson Real as a centre-back, dropping Dyer, playing Bentancur, Lo Celso, Kulusevski as the attacking midfielder. And that's admirable, and it's very good to watch. But I also think Spurs need to tighten things up at the back with all these players injured. And it's going to be very difficult to replace that calibre of player in Mickey van der Ven, Romero, and Maddison. But thankfully for Spurs, Romero will be back very soon. On my second account, I did Matoma to Sterling. Yeah, just be careful because some people in the live chat sometimes say, oh, you can't have a second account, although it doesn't really matter. Sell Bowen or Son to get Mbeumo. I'd rather sell Son, but don't do it yet. Just keep things as they are. Wait for more updates. If Bowen is ruled out for Gameweek 14, then you can obviously do the reverse and keep Son instead. I got Anderson, but I'm tempted to transfer him with Tsimikas after the loss against Luton. Well, Anderson has one more good fixture remaining in Gameweek 15, but I'd rather have Tsimikas. I think that's quite sensible. It makes sense. It's not reactionary. But if it was me, I think I'd keep Anderson for the next two and then sell him. And that's what I'm looking to do myself. What's your thoughts on Chelsea and Newcastle swings upcoming? Plans to get Trippier? Any other Chelsea defence? Not Trippier right now. He's always a threat. He's a bonus points machine. I think he's still got the most bonus points of any player so far this season. And Newcastle have a good defence overall. In terms of Chelsea, it's probably Reece James, but the reason why I'm probably not going to go there is his injury record. So once he comes back from suspension, I'll reassess, of course. But at the moment, I think my plan would be just to get maybe Trippier at some stage, but I've got other plans right now to buy David Raya and upgrade the goalkeeper position. I think that's a great differential for me, whilst most people stick with Areola and his constant blanks. And I'm also looking to buy Mbeumo, which everyone's going to do. But yeah, after that, I would maybe look towards buying a Chelsea Newcastle defender. As things stand, I think it's James and Trippier who are by far the best, but there are pros and cons behind both of them, especially with Reece James, who is just very unreliable. Will Eze play next game? I can't tell you that. And no one here in the chat can. Just wait for more updates later in the week, and then we can reassess. Based on the comments by Roy Hodgson yesterday, I would assume he won't, but let's wait and see. 40 points, one of the worst weeks of the season, plus Eze injury. Yeah, I think those with Eze are very unlucky, to be honest, and that's FPL for you sometimes. Palmer or Gordon? Gordon. I'll stick with him. Is Cash worth holding or move to Saliba? Move to Saliba. I don't think it's necessarily worth holding. The only reason I'm doing it at the moment is because I'm quite happy with the rest of my defence and I don't see a need to do it. I could go to Pinnock or Mikalenko, but it's not really going to be a huge upgrade in my opinion. Yeah, Nkuku could be a decent shout once he comes back, but I'm not so sure if he's going to play in Gameweek 14 necessarily. I'm with Chelsea. Palmer and Sterling are looking like the best right now. With Nkuku, it could be a bedding in period as he returns from injury and also acclimatizes to the Premier League. Saliba plus Gabriel says Singh. Yeah, that's still completely fine, to be fair. Which Gameweek is going to be the double Gameweek fixtures? Potentially Gameweek 20. So when Brentford and Man City blank in Gameweek 18, that fixture could fall into Gameweek 20, and that would mean 2 home games there for Manchester City, and also a potential triple captaincy on Erling Haaland. No news on Bowen. We covered him already. So yeah, we haven't got any updates so far. I'll try to look now and see what David Moyes said yesterday, but I don't think we can get anything concrete. I wouldn't expect him to give much away, to be honest. Yeah, I still haven't seen anything in terms of what David Moyes said, which is a shame. But let's see. Yeah, pretty much right now we have no conclusive updates. I'd basically just relax with Bowen. I'm seeing a lot of people selling him. I personally would hold him and wait for more updates. Thinking of doing Cash to Saliba tonight before the price rise, or doing Diaby to Gordon. What do you think? My preference out of the two would be Cash to Saliba, but Gordon is also a good transfer. I think the way I'd play it there, Cannon, is do Cash to Saliba now, and then in Gameweek 15, I'll do Diaby to Gordon. If Tottenham lose against Man City next week, that is 4 in a row. Do you think the manager will be sacked? No, definitely not. There's no chance. Look, and Spurs have Newcastle soon. They could lose 6 in a row. There's no chance Postecoglou will be sacked. He literally won 3 Manager on the Month awards in a row. Whether deservedly or not, it's another question, but he won 3 in a row. He put Spurs in a really good position. It's still their best start to a Premier League season ever, I believe. So, there's no chance of that happening. Even if City wins 6-0, which could happen, I don't think that'll be the case. Should I sell Anderson to Saliba? I'd rather sell Cash. Keep Anderson for the next 2, and then maybe sell him afterwards, but I'd rather sell Cash there, mate. The stats say Spurs are a mid to lower mid-table defence. Do you think they are worth targeting? Yeah. The only defender I like, Jesus, the voices really annoy me, is Pedro Porro, because of the attacking potential, the set pieces, but yeah, I think they are worth targeting, and that's why Haaland could be my captain next week. It's currently on Salah, but I think Haaland against Tottenham looks really good. Alvarez replacement? Well, Watkins is always going to be good, even with the tougher fixtures, but I'd go for Isak or Darwin. I think one of those two look better. I think most people would probably edge towards Isak, but my preference is Darwin. Is an Arsenal defensive double-up good or a bad idea? I think good. I'm looking at doing the same thing with Raya in goal and Saliba. I don't mind it. When to use free hit for double game week? Well, I think the earliest opportunity for a kind of unanimous free hit or a popular time to use it is Game Week 18 with a blank. If you've got, let's say, Alvarez, Haaland, Mbeumo, Pinnock, and maybe another Brentford player or City player, I think a free hit in Game Week 18 looks great. But If you're already kind of set up, you've only got Haaland and Mbumo, then you could save it. Even Game Week 20 could be a shout, but I'd rather use the bench boost or the triple captain if we get the double placed in Game Week 20. And of course, we should get some more doubles later in the season or another time to use it, I think. Is Diaby to Parma a good transfer? Yeah, I still think it's a good transfer, but I'd rather buy an Arsenal defender if you don't have them already. I think that's the priority. Was Colwill starting on the bench? Yes, he came off the bench yesterday and got a yellow card, but I just don't really like him because even against Tottenham, he was losing his head. You know, he was lucky not to be sent off, you could argue, in that match, and Cucurella came on for him at half-time. So, yeah, I'm not so sure about Colwill. Let's wait and see. Maybe things will change, but I'm just saying, as things stand, based on what I've seen recently, I wouldn't go for him. I just assess from afar and see if he can deliver in the tougher fixtures as well. Even if he's just playing every single minute, that's already, you know, good signs, and then Chelsea can build upon that in the so-called easier games. But if you look at Chelsea this season, competitive against the best teams, except yesterday, and also pretty poor against low blocks. Who's the best replacement for Bowen? Once again, I'm going to be a broken record. I would keep Bowen and definitely wait at least for updates. But if you are looking to sell him, you've already got Saka and Boomer and Salah, I'd maybe look at Gordon or Palmer. I still like those two. The other midfielders I'd maybe look at Kudus as a like-for-like, but I'd honestly keep Bowen. Sell Son or Bowen? I'd rather sell Son, but once again, don't make early transfers if possible. Wait for more updates, because if you sell Son now, and then it turns out Bowen is out for Game Week 14, you'll be kicking yourself. Would you go Bowen to Mbumo to get Saliba for Mitchell? Not a bad shout, to be fair, but I'd probably say no. I'd still like Bowen, I'll be honest. I'm going to stick with my opinion there. I'm going to stick with him. And look, is Mbumo better? Yes, and Saliba's an upgrade on Mitchell, but maybe you can find another way to buy Mbumo. That would be my take. Sell Son to Mbumo or sell Watkins to Solanke and buy Mbumo from 4.5 million mid that allows me to keep Son. I'd sell Son to Mbumo. I can see what you're doing there, but selling Watkins to Solanke, I'm not really feeling it. Plus, I've seen Dalot got the assist today. Well, I've never had Dalot, so I'm not bringing him back. But yeah, Dalot's all right. The thing is, with, you know, once everyone's available, you've got Wan-Bissaka, Luke Shaw, and then you've got Dalot himself. He's not going to start week in, week out, potentially. Maybe Man United fans can correct me, but a few weeks ago, you know, United fans were slating Dalot for how poor he was playing. I thought it was Kudus, Doku, or Gordon. Then it'd be Kudus, then Doku. I want to sell Botman for Pinnock, or should I sell cash for him? It's tricky though with Botman. He could be nearing a return soon. Yeah, I'd rather sell Botman. Keep cash, play him for Game Week 14, and then sell him afterwards potentially. Cannon Fodder says I'm thinking of doing cash to Saliba, but I still have Bowen and only one free transfer. Should I sell cash for Saliba before the price rise, or wait for Bowen news? Wait for Bowen news. That's really important for you, mate. It's really important. Trippier to Lascelles and Alvarez to Haaland for a -4. Yeah, I'll be honest, it's not completely ideal, but I'd do it. Haaland is Haaland, and he's worth it. Thinking of getting in Palmer plus Colwill / Gusto if he is back. Really thinking of Watkins plus cash to Jackson and Trippier in Game Week 16 could be a good option. Considering the fixtures, yes. I'll be honest, I don't trust Jackson still. I think a lot of his numbers are inflated by that game against Tottenham, and I still don't think he's a good enough striker at the moment. He's very raw. I'd rather go for his second Darwin personally, but based on fixtures, it looks like a good play. Dawn says, what do I do? I mean, your team looks fine, to be honest. I mean, I don't think there's anything that stands out necessarily. Probably just Diaby to Mbumo. I think that's quite a simple transfer that many of us are doing this week. So just keep it simple. Diaby to Mbumo. Trippier to Lascelles, yeah, we covered. Hi, Dylan, what would you do with Joachim Andersen? Keep. I'm benching him this week, starting him in Game Week 15, and then looking to sell potentially. Is Son to Mbumo worth the transfer? I think so. Yeah, I think so. Let's see what else we have. I already have Salah, Son, Gordon. Yeah, we covered. Percentage chance of Gabriel going up in price tonight. We can cover that very quickly, but I don't assume it'll be very high, to be quite honest with you. So if we check Gabriel... Oh, wow, okay. I stand corrected. It's almost 100%. So I wouldn't expect him to go up in price today based on this website, but yeah, at some point this week, yeah, he definitely will go up in price. Just a matter of when. But don't buy him in now because he is playing Lons on the Wednesday. Raya or Saliba for my last Arsenal player? Interesting one. Maybe because you've already got Gabriel, I'd go for Raya. Generally speaking, though, in isolation, Saliba's my favourite because of bonus points, the odd goal threat, which Arteta said they're working on with Saliba. I'm not a big fan of having necessarily like two defenders from the same team. I know it seems a bit weird because it's the same thing ultimately, but you are taking two of your 5 defender slots with the same team that way. But I'm going to stick with... I'm going to go for Saliba. I think I'm going to go for Saliba just for the bonus points and also the attacking threat, which he could build upon. Sell Eze or Diaby. I'd rather sell Diaby, assuming Eze's fit, but don't do it yet. Wait for more updates. I'm going to encourage everyone else as well with their own situations. We've still got over 200 people watching, I believe, but only around 80 likes, I think. So let's be sure to get those numbers up. It'd be greatly appreciated. Let's try to get this stream to 150, and it costs nothing, like I said. And of course, it goes a long way to helping the channel grow. Let's now go back to my team. And by the way, I'm not sure what changed because yesterday the overlay didn't work, but now it's working. So I honestly have no idea why that has changed, but I'm happy that it is. Is it time to sell Alvarez? It's not an easy yes or no because Alvarez has good long-term fixtures. The quality of play is certainly there. The thing is, though, poor form and poor underlying numbers recently. I personally would sell him, but I don't think he's a priority sell. If Bona's ruled out, just one more week, is he a sell or hold long-term? I think for those without Mbeumo, I think he'd be a sell. It's a tricky one because you'd probably want him back for Gameweek 15 in that scenario that you're offering. But yeah, long term, you're saying, yeah, he'd be a hold still, in my opinion. A bit unfortunate. It's not ideal to do that, but I'd still lean towards hold. Who would you sell between Bone and Son? Son. Will Gordon have rotation risks? Potentially when Barnes comes back, but now I think he'll be quite safe. And you ask most Newcastle fans, they'll say Gordon's been their best player this season. Thank you, Ian. Good score for you, Dylan. You're 2 points and 50k ahead of me now. Well, still really close. That's basically nothing. 2 free transfers and 1.6 million in the bank. Adingra to Gordon or Palmer and roll. 1 or Archer to Darwin, Son to Bowen if fit, or Gordon Palmer. Very interesting, to say the least. I think if I had to pick one transfer from those you're saying, a set of transfers, I would personally do Archer to Darwin and Son to Bowen if he's fit, as you say. If Bowen isn't fit, my next favourite thing would be Adingra to Gordon. I think that's the way to go about it. So it all depends on that Bowen fitness update. Thank you, Gareth025. Mustafa says, will Bowen play next week? I can't tell you that. I personally think he will be available, but it's just an opinion which is uninformed. Diaby, Gordon, Palmer, only 2 to keep. Gordon and Palmer. I'd sell Diaby. Will you bring Doku back when Man City play Luton? I might buy him, but I'm not so sure, to be honest, because the minutes are still a big concern. It could be Grealish playing in that game whilst Doku is benched. My whole FPL would have been so much more settled if I just went for Saliba over Gabriel before Gameweek 1. Yeah, that was kind of a game-changing decision back then. Very unfortunate for those that went for Gabriel. And Gabriel was so close to getting the bonus points yesterday. And I think he played very well. I would have given it to Gabriel. You know, you're probably looking at Rice. For me, he was man of the match. You're looking at Zinchenko. He played very well. And then I would have given it to Gabriel. But the bonus point system is flawed. I'm selling James Ward-Prowse from Boomer. Bought in Solanke. Already regretting my decision. Would you do a doggy to Saliba for a -4? I'd rather do Diaby to Saka for a -4. But the doggy to Saliba is a great long-term move. I'm not denying that. My kind of gripe with that is if you've got a Lascelles or a decent 4th or 5th defender, just start them and avoid the -4 hit for Saliba. But you're on the right track, you're making the right moves. Diaby to Saka and a doggy to Saliba would be perfect. I would make those moves eventually, but maybe not for a -4. Trippier to Saliba and use extra money to improve the bench, have Maguire, Tsimikas and Gay. Yeah, that's fine. The thing with Trippier, though, I still think some big returns are coming. Any clean sheet, and he's very likely to get some bonus points. And of course, he still has some assists for it. But yeah, I prefer Saliba. I think that's a good move. Do you like Sterling as a transfer? I'm a bit indifferent about it. I think he's okay. He has been pretty decent recently, but I'm still not fully convinced, to be honest. I think, you know, to buy ahead of those really good fixtures for Chelsea, either Palmer or Sterling is absolutely fine. But I think Mbeumo is the big priority if you don't have him. Cash for Saliba versus Wolves or Tsimikas versus Fulham. Cash for Saliba versus Wolves. I mean, I'd rather go for Saliba, just in general. I think Arsenal have the best defence in the league, along with Man City, and the underlying numbers support that, so I'd go for Saliba. Thank you, Ian. Likewise, I'll catch you very soon for the streams. Isak or Darwin for Archer? I'm going to stick with Darwin. I just prefer what I've seen from him so far, but Isak has been good as well. If Bowen is ruled out for the next 3 matches, well, that's different. He's a sell then because he's missing most of the good games he has. So, yeah, if he's ruled out for 3 weeks or even 2, he would be a sell. But if he's ruled out for 1, I'm kind of orange on it, but I'd still be leaning towards hold. And of course, if he's available, he's a definite keep, and I think he could punish sellers. Sell Diaby or Eze for Mbumo. If Eze's fit, I'd sell Diaby. Wait for updates. Diaby, Bowen or Son for Mbumo this week. I'd sell Diaby, but once again, wait for updates regarding Bowen. Have Trippier, Isak, Tsimikas, Tarkovsky, Taylor. Sell anyone for an Arsenal defender for a hit. I'm not sure if I'd do it for a hit, to be honest, but Taylor's the one you'd ideally sell. Lascelles is your 4 million defender anyway, so long as Botman is out. So yeah, ideally, yeah, Taylor to Saliba's the one. Who would you sell from Bimmer? We covered. Oh, it's a different one. Adam says Martinelli, Bowen, or Diaby. To be honest, yeah, probably still Diaby. Taylor versus Sheffield United or Archer versus Burnley? Good question. I'd go for Archer. Who to buy, Mbuma or Palmer, Gordon? Mbuma. J.R. Aaron says midfield Diaby, Salah, Son, Mbuma, Martinelli, 1 transfer. What would you do? I was thinking Diaby to Palmer and keep Martinelli. Yeah, or you could even go to Gordon. Mbuma is my preference if you don't have him. As for Martinelli, I haven't been convinced by him FPL-wise this season. Lack of bonus points. He's not going to play the full 90 most games. I think Martinelli is a sell, unfortunately. What is wrong with Chelsea? They played 2 good games and then trashed by Newcastle. Well, Chelsea's a young team. They're under transition. They've been poor for the last 18 months, if we're being honest. They've got some good players, but I also think there are a few in there, even the goalkeeper. You look at some of the defenders, even Nicholas Jackson up front, and they're not good enough. If you're looking at a team that want to push for the Champions League, it's just not going to happen. Let's just be honest. But yeah, I think the ultimate main issue for Chelsea is the owners. I think their policy of just buying, the best young players, so to speak, no real plan behind their moves. I think that's the biggest issue. United also, with their recent troubles, their ownership has been disgraceful. But with Chelsea, it's just spending money for the sake of it. Odegaard, Bruno and Eze for Mbumo. Curtis and Gordon for a -4. Yeah, I'd do it, to be fair. Wait for Eze updates if he's available. I'd keep him for the next 2 and maybe delay the Gordon move, but Mbumo is definitely a great move and transfer in general. Overall rank, aim to improve upon last season, basically. Ideally be top 10k, but I do recognise it will be difficult, and let's see if I can do it. Surely Eze is out for long. Yeah, I think he'll be out for this week. I'm just saying, just in case, wait, because he could be really useful in Gameweek 15, for example. And if you sell him without the information and then he turns out to be fine, you're going to be regretting it again. Christian says Son out for Saka, better fixtures. Thank you for the super chat, mate. I would do that. I definitely would. With Son, I always said this. I'd keep him for Villa, possibly captain him because I really like that, fixture for him. But afterwards, he's a sell. He has a great record against Man City, but I think Saka's more consistent and he'll have more FPL points by the end of the season. I'd go for Saka, yeah. Sell cash now. If you don't have Saliba or a defender you really want to get, I'd sell cash right now. Trippier plus Kudus or Lascelles and Mbuma? Great question. Short term, it'd be Lascelles and Mbuma. It all depends when Botman comes back from injury. Right now, I'm going to go for Lascelles and Mbuma. Saliba or Van Dijk? In FPL, Saliba. Cash to Saliba or Diaby to Mbuma? Great question. My answer will be Diaby to Mbuma. Thoughts on Martinelli and cash to Saliba and Mbuma? I really like it. Honestly, those are fantastic transfers. I have no issues with it whatsoever. I'd do it. Maybe I'd wait just in case, but I think those transfers are pretty locked in. Possibly Diaby to Palmer and Martinelli to Saka for a -4. Yeah, overall it is worth it. I do prefer Gordon over Palmer, but Palmer is still in my thinking. I could buy him in the next couple of weeks. So, yeah, I'm not against that at all. DRK34 says my team is Share, Tsimikas. Just for the sake of my voice, I'm not going to read the rest, but I am reading it mentally. So what should I do? I'm guessing that says, I don't know what money you have, how many transfers, but the big priority would be Diaby to Mbuma, which sounds very boring. I'm going to say it for a lot of people, but it's very simple for a reason. It's a great transfer long term. I'd do it. Anderson replacements, can't get Saliba. Gabriel is still fine. Sinchenko, if you can afford it. I'm guessing you can't, but Gabriel would be a really safe bet. Kudus or Gordon? Gordon. Yeah, Torres Caicedo. So I'm actually expected they're going to get destroyed. Yeah, I'm actually surprised that Caicedo got benched, but it makes sense. He was obviously playing for Ecuador in the qualifiers, a lot of travel, and Caicedo played every single minute, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah. It's a difficult one. I was surprised by... I'm not even going to try to pronounce that for now, but I was surprised to see him in the starting lineup. Alvarez to Isak, yep. I think that's a pretty solid transfer, so long as Wilson's out. I was contemplating playing bench boost, decided not to, and missed 20 points. Who was on your bench? I'm guessing players like Lascelles and Douglas Luiz or something. Is Lascelles still a good option? Yeah, I still think so, but Botman could be back fairly soon. So yeah, Mario, we have covered that Saliba question. I've given you my answer. Antonis Vlakos says Diaby, Bowen, Salah, Son, Palmer, one free transfer. I'm thinking of Son to Saka or Diaby to Mbumo. Diaby to Mbumo has the highest upside. I know Son's playing Man City, but he's got a great record against them. Highline could sue him once again if he can time his runs. So yeah, Diaby to Mbumo, I think, is the best transfer. Will you think Everton will survive this season? Well, before that deduction, I thought they easily would, especially with their recent results, but it's going to be tough. I think they will. I think they ultimately will survive because you've got Luton Town, Burnley and Sheffield United who still look pretty poor overall, but things look much tougher. And even that deduction of points, it gives those teams I just mentioned a bit more belief that they can stay up because you've got that fourth team suddenly where you can take or pip 17th place from them. So, yeah, I think Everton will survive, but it's going to be extremely difficult and probably will go down to the wire. That 10-point deduction could be very costly. What are your plans with Bowen? Hold. Wait for more information. If he's out for Game Week 14, maybe I'll sell him, but if he's available, I'm going to keep him for sure. Why would you sell cash before Bournemouth at home? I'm not personally selling him. My plan is to keep him and start him, but some people are looking to sell him and they want an Arsenal defender. I think that's a huge upgrade long term, and even this week, better chance of a clean sheet there for the Gunners. So from that perspective, I would do it, but it all depends. As I mentioned earlier, if you're kind of happy with your defense already, you're not sure who you're going to buy for cash, then there's no real need to right now. Is Wissa a good transfer? I wouldn't buy Wissa, but if I had him, I'd keep, at least for the Luton fixture. That's what I'd do. What are your thoughts about Kudus? Like I said, you know, apart from Bowen, you're looking at Ward-Prowse, then Kudus as the best West Ham midfielders. My issue with Ward-Prowse is that he plays far too deep. Kudus is very exciting, and that's 2 double-digit returns now, so he is very... I'm not sure about a feast or famine kind of perception by him yet, but yeah, I think with Kudus, he might be very inconsistent, blank a lot, but then he'll deliver huge hauls and be explosive. Yeah, well, I think with Kudus, I do like the look of him. I watched him against Arsenal in the Carabao. He was very impressive, an amazing goal he scored. And yeah, I think he's a decent option. But would I sell Bowen to Kudus or something like that? No. I want to say Mboum is essential, but he's one of the best midfielders to buy over the next 5 game weeks. Yeah. JR Aaron says defense is cash, Tsimikas, Gay, Taylor, Saliba. Focus midfield this week, most likely, then sort defense out. Yeah, because you can start cash, Tsimikas, and Saliba, and that's completely fine for this week. I've got an identical defensive line. The only difference is I have Anderson instead of Gay. Bruno Fernandes plus Watkins or Son and Højlund. Fernandes and Watkins, but not a big fan of United attackers. I had Areola, Lascelles, Semenyo, and Baldock on the bench. That is pretty tough to take. Yeah, I do feel for you there. Semenyo with the assist, Baldock with the assist, Lascelles as well with the goal. It's a bit of bad luck, to be honest. I'm pretty sure you made the right decision with who you started and benched. Shivanand puts his team 2 free transfers with 0.2 million in the bank. What do I do, or who should I go for? Diaby to Mbumo, very simple. And I think Adingra, it's a bit frustrating because, yeah, Adingra to Gordon or Palmer is ideal. You know what? I would do Son to Mbumo, and I would also consider Diaby to Gordon. And then either next week or the week after, you could do Adingra to Palmer. Your defensive line, yeah, there might be some issues. I think you need an Arsenal defender as well. Your attack is absolutely fine. I think you've probably got an ideal attack where you don't have Haaland. Is that you don't have Haaland? That's Let's see. So Raya, Turner, Bodro, James, Gay, Van Heck, Taylor. Yeah, you put 14 players. I'm assuming you have Haaland. If you do, your forward line is perfect, I think. Your goalkeeper also really good. I think the big priorities for you are the midfield and then the defense. So buy Saliba. It could even be for Bodro or even for Reece James if you want to get rid of him. I'm guessing he's a long-term hold for you, which I understand. And then, yeah, buy Saliba or Lascelles in the back line, and then in the midfield, buy Mbumo and Gordon. You should definitely have enough money for all of that. Should I buy Kane? I'm guessing this is used to your fantasy. Well, the big issue with that, as we'll talk about in Tuesday's deadline stream, is rotation. I think he will start, and as a result, I think he's a great captaincy option, but it's going to be risky either way, to be honest with you. I also got Kulusevski in my team, but don't know if I should keep him. I'd sell Kulusevski. I just don't really trust him FPL-wise. He was really good in terms of output when he first joined Tottenham on loan from Juventus, but ever since that, he's been pretty inconsistent in terms of goals and assists. Yeah, he did score last time at the Etihad, but I'd personally sell him, to be honest. I think there's much better midfielders. I want to sell Alvarez for a 4.3 million attacker, then my 4.3 million midfielder to Gordon. Not for a -12. It's just not worth it, mate. It honestly isn't. As good as Saliba, Gordon, and any other player you bring in is, a -12 is very excessive, in my opinion. MBCFC says 57 points. Dallo and Gordon really saved me. Yeah, likewise. It must be a bit weird for you. I think you're a Chelsea fan, right? So mixed feelings. Moved up to top 80k at the moment. I benched Haaland the week before. Oh yeah, you do say that there. I'm a Chelsea fan and I'm regretting it as I could be higher. Oh, you benched Haaland this week. Oh, fair enough. Well, that's an interesting one. Never bench Haaland and Salah. Seems very simple advice, but I think world number one, or at least he was world number one yesterday, I think he benched Haaland because he supports Liverpool. So there you go. Could Akanji or Ake be an option? I think Akanji would be slightly better. He seems more nailed on, but Ake rotates a lot with Gvardiol. Walker's the best because he seems the most nailed on and his price isn't too bad. So, yeah, you're probably looking at Walker if you want a City defender. Palmer or Gordon? Gordon. What should I do to catch who has the highest points? Well, I'll be honest, if you want to catch number one, that'll be very difficult, and there's no formula. I'm only just getting back on track myself. I've had a poor start, but I think, like I said to someone else earlier, patience is very key. Give your assets time to breathe. To name you one big example, I bought Gordon last week. He blanked against Bournemouth, played up front, and I think he played all right, but he never really looked like scoring or assisting. Then heading into Gameweek 14, facing Chelsea and Man United back-to-back, I kind of thought about it and thought, you know what, I might sell him and then go to Mbumo or Eze. And I think patience is so important, and that's one of my biggest weaknesses from when I started off FPL. Once I started being calmer, giving my assets time to breathe, at least 3 or 4 games, I think that's just the best way to tackle things, because otherwise you're going to be chasing points constantly and you're going to be selling players when they haul. Should I sell Martinelli to Palmer or Gordon? I would, yeah. I think Martinelli to Gordon would be my preference. Yeah, fair enough there, Shivanand. Yeah, pretty much everyone has Haaland. There's someone in my mini league who doesn't. But yeah, Kudus, Doku or Palmer? It's between Kudus and Palmer for me. Doku is still at the bottom. I'm going to stick with Palmer, but I think Kudus is a really good option, I think. A good alternative, differential. And Palmer relies a lot on penalties, which does put me off a little bit. I'm quite happy I didn't buy Palmer yet, because I can assess him over the next few weeks. If he's still not really delivering, from open play, then I might reconsider buying him altogether. Play Lascelles versus Man U. I'm not against that. I think Newcastle won 2-0 last time, back in April. It wouldn't surprise me if a similar result happened. Of course, Newcastle have a lot of injuries. United won well today. But I don't mind that, to be honest. It's a bit similar to the Lascelles-Chelsea situation this week. Areola to Raya for a -4. Not sure if it's worth a -4, to be fair. Both have home fixtures. They look pretty decent as well. LeBron or Westbrook in prime? I know nothing about NBA, so take my opinion with a pinch of salt, but from what I've seen in terms of clips, I'd say LeBron. And LeBron is right up there with Michael Jordan, but I don't know much about NBA. I mainly watch basketball through the Olympics when Argentina had pretty good teams with Ginobili and players like that. That was fun to watch, but yeah, I don't know much about basketball. That's not my thing. I've just locked in on cash to Saliba. Well, it's a great transfer long term. It will pay off. You just have to hope that Saliba goes through the Champions League game unscathed. I've got him in UCL Fantasy too. So all the best of luck with your transfer. What would you do with 2 free transfers, says Adam? Well, you mentioned 2 earlier that I really liked. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but looking at your team, I think Martinelli to Mbeumo looks great. I'd keep Bowen for now. I think your defensive line is absolutely fine as well. So yeah, I would look at doing Martinelli to Mbeumo and then doing Diaby to Gordon or even Kudus. I wouldn't mind that at all. The thing is, you already have Bowen, and if he's fit, I'd keep him, and a double up in West Ham attack isn't ideal. So yeah, Adam, the things I do is Martinelli to Mbeumo for sure. Or Diaby to Mbeumo, actually. My bad. Diaby to Mbeumo. And the other transfer I'd make is either Martinelli to Gordon, or I would do Fleck into Raya. That's my take on it. Should I buy Jakob Modder now? Okay, yeah, I don't even know why I didn't read the rest of it. My bad. Thoughts on Elanga? Well, he's actually been pretty good this season. He made a terrific run against Arsenal in Gameweek 1, and ever since then, he's just caught my eye. He's been heavily involved in Forest's goals. Not sure if I'd buy him in FPL, but yeah. Just 1 second. Yeah, I think he's been pretty decent. From Forest, though, Morgan Gibbs-White is probably the biggest standout right now. Son to Mbeumo and Nketiah to Isak. Yeah, great transfers. I'd do them. It's not bringing Gordon in this week, the end of the world. Definitely not, mate. Definitely not. To be honest, though, that's Garnacho's, first goal this season. I think his last Premier League goal before that was against Fulham away, before the World Cup. Yeah, I just wouldn't go there. He might have scored, by the way, in Gameweek 38, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He probably scored another goal after, but yeah, I wouldn't really do that. There's much better options than Garnacho. You've got even Douglas Luiz. More importantly, you've got Palmer, Gordon, just for a little bit more. Yeah, he does seem cheap, but I wouldn't go on my way to buy Garnacho. Douglas Luiz versus Paulinho versus Souček, who's the better player? They're kind of different. I think Paulinho is more of a destroyer. He's the best defensively of the 3, for sure. Douglas Luiz is probably the best all-round player in terms of technical ability. He's very good to watch at sometimes. I think today he played very well. I'd say Paulinho first, Douglas Luiz second, and Souček third. I've seen that Saka's on form. Well, in terms of output, he's very consistent, but not sure if he's on form. He created 5 chances yesterday, had a good game overall, but one thing that's happened with Saka is he's very isolated, or not even isolated. He's just hugging the touchline. He's providing a lot of width for Arsenal, and he's not getting into central areas enough to really score enough goals. So, yeah, I like Saka a lot. He's very consistent, but he's not in the best of form, I'd say. There's still levels more for him to reach. Alvarez to Darwin worth a -4? I'd say so, but Alvarez is still a good long-term hold. I think Alvarez to Darwin could pay off for the next 3 gamings, but afterwards, you're probably looking at going back to Alvarez. Son blank, but got some really good chances. Keep or sell. I think it's kind of a case of who your other midfielders are. So if you've got Bowen and he's fit, you've got Saka, you've got Mbeumo, you've got Salah. If you've got those options already, you can keep Son. And you're happy with the rest of your team, you don't need funds and stuff like that. Son could be a definite keep. But I think for a lot of people who might be wanting to make a midfield transfer, buy an Mbeumo or a Saka, I think Son is the easiest to sell. And as a result, in those scenarios, I would sell him. I'll cover him in the transfer tips video and try to elaborate more on my perspective. But I think generally speaking, if I had him, I'd be more inclined to sell. But it also depends on your midfield situation. Best 8th attacker for the December period, both midfielders and forwards. Gordon, Palmer would be very good for the 5th midfielder. Very cheap options there. In terms of the 3rd striker, I'd say Isak or Darwin. Even Alvarez look really good too. I'd say one of those 3 alongside a Haaland. Yeah, I think that's the way to go. If you want someone even cheaper up front, then let me know, but that's going to be a bit more of a struggle. Solanke could still be quite good. You triple captain James this week. Oof. I know a few years ago he got a big return against Newcastle, and then I rage transferred him in. But yeah, it's a different Newcastle now. Livramento and cash for Sharon or Doggy. Yeah, I mean, Wait, Livermento and cash for Sharon Odogi? I would not do that. I think if anything, do Livermento to... I mean, share's fine. That's not too bad. You could go to Lascelles or Trippier. I personally would favour Saliba or Gabriel. Any Arsenal defender would be the priority. And Pinnock is another one. I wouldn't buy a doggy. If you want a Spurs defender, go for Pedro Porro, but their defence is looking awful. Adam says, forgot to say for my team, I would have to sell Martinez to Mbumo, as I already have triple Arsenal. Would you do Ariel to Raya or cash to Saliba? Cash to Saliba. And to be honest, I don't know who your second goalkeeper is. Isn't it Flecken? I'd rather sell Flecken and keep Areola. I can see why you're doing it, to be fair. And Flecken has some good fixtures, actually. So, yeah, I think in your situation, it's best to do cash to Saliba and Martinelli to Mbumo. Keep Diaby for Bournemouth and then sell him in Gameweek 15. So we have gone through a lot of questions and we have had quite a few viewers in this stream. So thank you very much to those who have tuned in. We still have over... or around 200, should I say. Let's try to get this stream to 150 plus. It'd be massively appreciated. The overlays are back as well to help you keep track of the questions and comments being answered. But yeah, if you've got no more questions or comments, we can call it a day. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to go for every single one of them. And I do find that frustrating. But yeah, the chat was very busy earlier on. Thank you very much for watching this one. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this stream to 150 likes and to keep on pushing towards 22,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server, and the FPL League. There's also a link to Drafthound, and I did show it earlier, a few other sites as well, like Fantasy Football Hub. I'd be just encourage you to check all of those sites out because they're very useful in building your FPL teams. I've got 2 free transfers next week. I'll be discussing my plans in the team selection video. There could also be a trans tips video as well. Be sure to let me know if you want to see that. Also the best wildcard team. And for UCL Fantasy, there will be the team selection video for Matchday 5 tomorrow and the deadline stream on the Tuesday around 3:30 p.m. UK time. Be sure to not miss any single one of those content by smashing the like button, subscribing for new. Thank you, Adam, CJR, and everyone else for tuning in. I'll catch you very soon. I'll protect my voice. Hopefully it's fine for tomorrow and the week to come. But I wish you all the best of luck for the rest of the season.